Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Steven Inks. Today we're going to be talking about a type of pen that's related to a fountain pen, which we normally talk about on this channel, but it's a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about this Kuretake brush pen, which is a really fantastic introduction into the brush pen world. I think a few of you have mentioned over the years, why don't I talk about brush pens? And to be honest, the truth is, although I have brush pens and I really like a lot of the ones that I do have, I don't feel completely confident in my ability to make and create things with brush pens, probably due to the fact that I'm more comfortable with fountain pens. And so I thought that this video could be a dive into what's a brush pen, how does it work, and what are some tips for people who draw with fountain pens to get into the world of brush pens without it being too scary. So in a non-confronting way, I'm just gonna go through all the parts and give it my best shot. So here we go. Alright, so here is the brush pen. It's the Kuretake number 13, I think it is. All of their brush pens have numbers, so I will make sure I have the right number for the video title. Yeah, this is the least expensive, the cheapest version of this brush pen that exists. I do have a fountain pen off to the side just for reference or general safety in case of any accidents, you know. I have some other brush pens, even some more expensive ones, even some from Kuretake, and I'd like to review those on their own merits. And today I just want to talk about brush pens. What are they? How do they work? And what are the similarities to fountain pen? This, by the way, is the Miam Miam Marshmallow pen. I have a recent video on my channel about this pen, so if you want to know more about that, just check it out. It's a pretty typical piston filling pen, meaning that the ink is inside of the body and you draw ink directly into the body. The Kuretake actually works off of, inside alert, cartridges, and you can find this cartridge right here. The ink is quite sufficiently black. It is a water-based ink, so you'll find that if you mix it with water, it'll dilute, it'll run, so it's not going to be something that you can do watercolor washes over. Incidentally, you actually can get a converter, just like fountain pens have a converter, and the one that works is the platinum converter. Kuretake doesn't make their own converters, to my knowledge, but the platinum converter fits directly in there. The platinum converter is a fantastic converter, and I do actually have it on some of my more expensive Kuretake pens, so when I do videos about that, I will show that off, but this is just how it comes, and it's got an almost, it kind of looks like a makeup, what is it, like an eyeliner brush, I think? They kind of have that sort of plasticky look to them. The bristles of this brush pen are right here, and these are real bristles. So when you look at it up close, you'll see that there's actual bristles to them, as opposed to some of the felt type brush pens where it's just like a felt tip that's flexible on the end. I don't really recommend those because they do eventually get bent out of shape, and then you can't use them over and over again. I've had this pen for, I want to say 7 or 8 years, and it still works really well. When I bought it, this was when I was living in South Korea, I think it was $10 or $12. It was not expensive, and even today you find that this pen is not very expensive. So it's a really simple device. You saw pretty much everything that is made up of it, and we can just start playing with it. Okay, we got my paper out, and we're just gonna play around with these brushes and see what it is that the brush can do. I also want to give you some tips on how to utilize a pen like this if you're used to a pen like this. The difference between the two being that the fountain pen has a metal nib, which means if it's not a flex pen, it means that if you push down on this metal part, it's pretty rigid, and you get a pretty consistent line no matter what you do with it. So even pushing down kind of hard, you do get a slightly thicker line, but it's not very different. You're just pretty much making lines like you would expect with a pen. Now, I don't really like flexible pens because I feel like they put down too much ink at one time. And you've seen some videos on my channel where I talk about that, and it just doesn't work for me. And I think the reason that this type of pen doesn't work for a lot of other people is because there's really too much flexibility. So if I were to just pop this down like I would use a fountain pen, I would probably end up with something like this, which feels like I'm drawing with a marker. It's super thick. And if you notice that this isn't really the best paper, and I did this on purpose to just kind of show off what it would look like on a cheap paper. If you were just to write the lines, you have this dry brushing effect where you get these little speckled pieces of white right here. All right, and that's called, like I said, that's called dry brushing. And what happens is that the ink that's in the brush doesn't come off as fast as it does from the nib of a fountain pen. So what you end up with is it just passes over the top before the ink has time to settle in. So when you get dry brush, if you don't want that, you need to move slowly. Okay, so if I take that same line and I want to do an ink line like that, and I'm going to go a little bit more slowly. You see how slow that was? Notice where I was moving kind of fast at the beginning, we have a little bit of that dry brushing, and there you go, you're seeing a different kind of line. And this is the angle that I'm doing this at, this very thick angle. If I want it to be super thick, which is, to be honest, kind of fun to do, I don't know how that would be practical for most of the drawing that that a lot of people that watch this channel would do, but there definitely is something there. Moving slowly works better. And if you want thin lines, so if we're doing something like this, you can go over it again. And the problem is that it's too thick, then what we need to do, the solution here is to move at a higher angle. Now, what I mean by that is that I'm holding, this is how I would hold a pen like this. I'm left-handed, so I've got kind of this diagonal, like 45-degree angle to the floor. I want it to be kind of flat, and I'm going to use two fingers really lightly like this, and I'm going to, I sometimes even use this finger as a stopping point, so I'm not pushing my pen too hard. And now I've got a much thinner line. But I can do it without that pinky underneath too. You'll notice though that the lines are a little bit wavy. So I'm going to do an example of this. I'm going to over exaggerate a little bit, but what we end up here is wavy lines, and that's fine. But if you want it to be in control, or you want just to have nice straight lines, the solution here is to draw from the shoulder. This will be hard for me to show off here. I'm going to see what I can do. But basically, if I draw from my wrist like this, look at, there's an angle, and it's causing my hand to arc because of the way that my wrists look. So if instead I lock my wrist, I don't move my wrist at all, and I even lock my elbow, try not to use my elbow, I can draw from the shoulder. The only thing that I'm moving is my shoulder. And I'm not perfect at this, but hopefully you can see that what we're coming up with is more consistently straighter lines. Not perfect lines, and I think that some of that is the character of the brushes, and it's also me personally. I a little bit out of practice with this stuff, so something to consider. But these are some tips that you can take when you're trying to do this drawing with brushes, and I've got a couple of other things I'd like to talk about. Some practices that I often do to get myself warmed up for this kind of drawing, and then just a couple of things that can help you build your skill. So let's talk about those together. So here are some tips to build your skills at fountain pens. And the first one is to attempt to draw tiny things. This just gives you the opportunity to see how far you can take it with fine lines with a brush. Here's a little guide that I came up with, and I think that this has helped me more than anything, is to just push my limits by going smaller than I think I can go and making little miniature things, and really having to back off on the details just to be able to create a drawing that's pleasing and interesting. And it really helps me to have finer lines when I actually am drawing something that's larger or more the size that I normally draw in. So doing little mini drawings is a great way to build your brush pen skills. Another tip, and this is just my own personal thing that I like, is to use the edges of a drawing to make heavier lines or thicker lines on the outside. This kind of comes from my love of comic books. It's something that they do a lot, outlining blocky shapes and making images look more graphical, because the outside edges are thicker, which makes the shapes, the big shapes, more well defined. This is a cool way to utilize brush pens. I think if you're interested in brush pens, you might be interested because of some comic style art that you've seen that you really appreciate, and a lot of brushed inks tend to have that sort of graphical style to them. So one thing you can try to do is keep your lines thin on the inside of your images and the outside edges nice and thick. I also like to start with those outside edges because it's easier for me to do the thicker lines, and then when I'm a little bit more practiced, I can go in and do those fine lines that go on the inside. Okay, and here's one that I've seen people better than me do, which is practicing your brush strokes. Now, if you watch in the video, before I actually make the line, I'm actually running my hand in the direction the line should go. Ends up with a straighter line, and this is pretty consistent. It helps even more than moving from the shoulder. However, you should definitely move from the shoulder when you're trying to make a straight line. This also works, however, with circles and other rounded shapes as well. You just practice the line with your hand before putting down the ink, and you may find that you end up with something that's better than you thought you could do. Here's the first exercise I'm going to show you. I'm going to demonstrate something that I've demonstrated before on this channel, but I'm just going to do it with a brush pen because it's going to help you kind of get a feel for how to make straight, consistent lines. And you're going to notice that my lines are not super straight or consistent in this. It's an exercise. It helps me do better. So the overall result is not that important, but what you do is you take a paper and you divide it in half. And then you divide that half in half, and so on and so forth, until you've basically filled the entire page with a bunch of straight lines. And you try as best you can to keep the lines from intersecting or touching each other. Try and bring them as thin as you possibly can, and then when you're done, you should have everything. You should have built your wrist strength and your consistency and your ability to watch your lines. So that's kind of what the goal is with that and how you achieve it. Okay, now let's do something similar, but this time we're going to do it with concentric circles. So start by drawing a big circle in the middle of your paper. Once you've drawn that big circle, and take your time, try to make it as round as you can, draw a slightly smaller circle inside of that circle. Again, just like the lines, your goal is to make them be as round as you can and as close together with the lines as you can without having them touch. And again, you'll see a lot of mistakes in this exercise. The purpose isn't to get 100% correct, but to improve at it. So here's my attempt at a page of this. Okay, I am about as warmed up as I'm ever going to be. Let's hit the drawing board. For this drawing, I had the idea of making a dragon which has sort of a fountain pen theme with nibs instead of scales and shoots ink instead of fire. I realize that's terribly ironic that on the day that I decide to do a dragon fountain pen themed pen, I'm not technically using a fountain pen, but oh well. I had fun with it, and it was definitely a challenge to get into fine details. I think that I noticed that it looked a lot smoother when I look at the playback, but all of the close peering at the picture and all of the squinting I had to do to get these little details right, you'll see my face in the shot a bunch of times, which you don't normally see on videos in this channel. But it was because I was just really trying to get everything right. And I missed some big things. I have the feet of the dragon off on the bottom there, and I have it looks like it has thumbs on both sides of the foot, but I was trying to do like a back claw, and I didn't quite get the angle right, and I realized these front kind of toes and the back claw kind of make it look like a chicken foot, which is not the most cool and impressive scary dragon in the world, but I may be incapable of making scary things. So here's a little dragon, and it looks like a fountain pen. The process of using the brush pen for this did start to feel easier and more fun after some time. I did wish that I could do something I normally do with my fountain pen drawings, which is add a mid value through hatching. So we couldn't really do that in this case. It was a lot of black and white, and some of the mid-texture shadows had to be done with some texturing, and it's not something that I feel like I'm terribly good at yet with brush pen, but plenty of room to grow. It was fun, and I think I did a pretty good job at this drawing despite not feeling super comfortable with my fountain pen, my brush pen skills, excuse me. Let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Definitely more to improve upon for next time. All right, wrapping this up. I had a lot of fun playing around with this pen. I still don't feel like I have all the skills I would like to have, because brush pens are such a versatile instrument for creating art with. You really have to build your skills to be able to show off all that they can do. It's definitely a worthwhile pursuit, and it's quite a challenge. So I encourage you, if you're into fountain pen art and you're just curious what these brush pens are all about, pick up a low-cost one like this Kuretake brush pen, play around with it, see what you think, try some of the exercises and suggestions in this video. Let me know what's helped you if you've transitioned from fountain pens to brush pens, or if you just really like making art with brushed inks. Please let me know what your experience has been and what's helped you get better at it. I personally will be doing a few more things with brush pens on this channel. Certainly, the main focus is going to be fountain pens. This is kind of what I love, but I am loving this pen, and looking forward to more opportunities to use it in the future and to build my skills. So if you enjoyed this video and are looking for more content like it, please like and subscribe to my channel. I can't wait to hit you with the next video, which will be coming up soon.